Good morning, Chuck here at Amish, PA. Glad you guys could come along. About a year ago, I purchased this stove here and installed it in my tiny house. It's the US Stove 500 square foot log wood stove. That's the name of it. I bought mine from Tractor Supply. They usually go for $349, and they'll have them on sale for $299 usually. You can also get them on Amazon, and I've seen other websites too where you can find them. This video here on this stove was one of my most watched and commented on videos of last year. And I'm going to do a follow-up video on this because a lot of the comments had questions about how the stove burnt. You couldn't cook on the surface of it. It leaked smoke. It puffed smoke. How do you put the flue pipe in? And all these different questions. And people were having concerns with it. I'm going to go ahead and do this second video here to clear up some of those concerns and questions. Despite being sold by US Stove Company, this stove is manufactured in China. It's all cast in China. It's partially assembled in China. It's shipped over here in a wooden crate. And the packing was really good though. I didn't have any damage on mine. But other people have commented that there was a little damage. But the packaging, maybe have gotten better or something, but the packaging was really good and I didn't have any damage at all. And when I got the stove, this part here was all assembled here. The sides, the back, the front, and the top and the bottom. I had to put the legs on, put the hearth on, the door, and the flue up here. The flue attachment right here. But I'm going to go ahead and go through some of the points that people have made about this stove and concerns and show you what my experience has been with this stove so far. Before I went ahead and assembled this or installed it in my home, I would definitely make sure the castings were correct and there were no problems with the castings. Mine fit together very nicely. You know, it was all assembled and I didn't see any problems with the casting. But there was one area that I did read comments on, not only on my channel, but on Amazon and Tractor Supply site, where the door was wonky. The door was cast incorrectly. So that'd be the one thing I'd be checking right away if I bought this stove. Make sure the door mounts on and it sits flush in the opening. I guess there was a problem with the casting, like on the hinge side possibly, where they weren't lining up well. And if they did line up, the door was cockeyed here. So that would be definitely something I'd be looking at. Let's start up here at the top of the stove. And I've gotten this comment quite a few times. This stove here is EPA compliant. That means it burns to a certain efficiency without the pollutants going into the air. Now, the one concern people have had, they don't understand, they don't read the directions, I guess, is that down inside of here, if I took this pipe off and you look down inside, you would see a cardboard-like substance that's covering the entire top of the stove here. And it looks like it's blocking the flue. So people have actually dug it out and said, oh, that must be a packing material. Well, it's not a packing material. It's something called KO wool. KO wool is a spun, I think they said it was a spun clay filament. Really fine, and it's packed together so it has airspace in between it. It's basically taking the place of asbestos. And it's used, has a high heat rating. It's over 2,000 degrees. They actually use it in rockets to shield certain parts from the intense heat. So that part is supposed to be in here. It looks like it's blocking the flue, but it isn't. It creates a surface. It keeps the heat down in the stove so the gases can reburn. And you can't take that out. You're gonna mess up the whole air circulation in this stove. So that's the one thing that a lot of people have said. And they didn't know what that was, and some people, like I said, dug it out. Don't dig it out. Leave it in there. It's supposed to be in there. It's not blocking your flue. All right? There's still able to be your gases and smoke exhausting up through the flue. All right? The next thing is, people are saying that, oh, the flue collar is oversized. I can't fit my stovepipe over top. The stovepipe doesn't go over top of the collar. The crimped end here goes into the collar. And then there's going to be a gap. Okay? After you attach it with some screws, you got to fill this gap in with some furnace cement. And I've used Rutland furnace cement. It's 2000 degree rated. It's for metal and it's for masonry. It's for both. This pipe, the crimped end goes down into the here. And then your stovepipes all nest inside of the stovepipes. In other words, the creosote, if anything runs down the stovepipe into the stove rather than on top of the stove. So I don't know how people are expecting that to work well when they try to put the stovepipes over top of the flue collar. It goes inside the flue collar, crimped end in. So there were two of the most common questions and comments that I've seen anywhere. Okay, what's that stuff inside the stove? And how come my pipe doesn't fit on correctly? One more thing. The manufacturer of this stove does not recommend that you put a damper in the stovepipe. Okay? None of the new stoves, or very few of the new stoves, recommend dampers in the pipes anymore. They all have to have a reburn system inside so that it reburns. You can't really mess up that airflow too much. So if you damper this, you could mess up the draft that your airflow needs inside the stove. So I would caution against that. That KO wool here, that acts as a damper. You never can get flame shooting up this pipe from the inside the stove box. All right? So it's supposed to internally damper itself. And while I'm at it, this stove is a single burn rate stove. The air comes in underneath this little doohickey right here. It's just open. It goes into the stove. And I don't know if you can see up underneath there, but it's a single burn rate. That means you're not controlling the air. I've burned this stove now for probably 4 months. I haven't yet to have a back puff into the tiny house here or have any leakage in my joints or in my door. It's really been a well-burning stove. All right. I guess you can't, modify these things by digging out that KO wool, putting a damper in, and then saying, well, it smokes. Well, you didn't install it correctly, and then maybe that's why it's smoking. I'm not sure. All right. Let's take a look at inside the stove here. Here's the inside of the door. That's where your air comes in through. All right. Now, I installed 4 fire bricks in mine. 4 fire bricks fit perfectly in here front to back. They're running this way. And there's 4 of them in there. And that helps to protect the bottom of the stove from overheating and burning out prematurely. Some people might not like that because it does take up volume, all the way back. So you might not like that. So if you don't, you can burn on the stove. Keep a bed of ashes on it. That'll help. Anyways, inside here, you can see the bottom of that KO wool pad. So that pad goes from the front of the stove all the way to the back, so it covers the flue, so you can't look down the flue and see inside the stove. You do see the pad. Now you also notice on this stove you have these pipes, and you have these little pipes here. See them right here going across here? And they have holes in them. Those draw in the oxygen, and you're also it's gonna suck in oxygen into those pipes, and it's gonna come out of those little holes, and that's gonna reburn the gases that build up. So in other words, you'll have gases building up here. In other words, unburnt gases. And these holes here push oxygen or air towards those gases, and they'll ignite. And then before they exit the stove, they're burnt rather than exiting the stove. Again, it's one of the pollution controls that you have to have on these wood stoves now. All right, so you can see that how that system is set up in here. Okay. And you're supposed to keep these pipes clean and make sure the holes are open all the time. Well, let's go ahead and get a fire started in the stove, because the last concerns were smoking and not being able to cook on the top of it. They say it's worthless, you can't cook on it. So I'm going to take a handy dandy thermometer here, see it? And we're going to check that stove after I get it going, and we're going to keep an eye on the temperature of the top, and we'll check the temperature of the sides and up the stove pipe to all the way up to the transition box to see how much heat is actually going up and how much is being lost. Okay, so let's go get a fire started in here and see how that works. Now, the manufacturer recommends that you burn well seasoned wood. This stove can take up to 19-inch pieces. So I'm going to put in 3 pieces of really well seasoned hardwood, and we're going to build this fire bottom up. In other words, we're going to put the big pieces on the bottom and work our way up to the kindling. Start the fire on the top. Now we put some dry pine in. You can see that here. Now I'm going to put in some old molding from a room I'm redoing. There we go. I love these Strike-A-Fires. They're by Diamond. They're just a big old match, wax impregnated. Let's take one of those out and see what they look like. So you can see these matches. I don't know if you've seen those before. You leave a comment down below if you like them. I love them. You know, they're coated on the end with the match material, the sulfur. Get their strike on the box right here. So you just have to strike on the box and you tip them over a little bit like that to get them going. Now, I believe the reason for starting these top down like this is because the faster you get your stovepipe warmed up, the quicker the draw is going to be. So the faster you can get warm air going up and out of this stove into the stovepipe, you're going to create your draft faster, and it's going to cut down on smoking. So that's a recommendation right in the manual, that you start them this way. So again, people are having trouble with them smoking. Possibly you're not following all the directions. So we're going to get this fire going here. We're going to leave this door cracked a little bit. Like that. You can still see the fire in there. And I'm going to let that fire get going here. And I'm going to show you the temperature inside the tiny house. It's about 36 degrees in here right now. So if you haven't seen the tiny house, I got a video on that. I'll leave my link in the description. So you can see this tiny house being built. It's made out of 3x6 or 3x7 timbers. Okay. Little kitchen. The stove's in this corner. Got the bathroom over here. Haven't been in here in a couple weeks. Cobweb. The bathroom. And up here, I built a little ladder here. Has a loft up here, sleeping loft. It's only been a couple minutes since I left you, but I wanted to show you when I open up this door, if you open it slowly, no smoke spills out into the room. You can see the smoke up here. You can see it inside the firebox, but it's not spilling into the room at all. So I think if you had a good draft, there shouldn't be a problem with these stoves. So I'm going to close that back up. We'll let that get going a little bit better. Then we'll start taking some temperatures. Well, the stove's been going for about less than 15 minutes now. Let's take a look. I'm going to open up the door slowly. I don't want to create a backdraft, but no smoke is exiting the firebox at all. And you can see she's really started up here. So that top-down method really does work. Gets that draft drawing really fast. I'm going to close this back up. And we'll take some heat measurements now on the top and on the sides and things. One of the comments we got is, you don't even get hot enough on the top here to cook anything. Let's go ahead and see what the temperature is here on the top. 596 degrees. So right on the middle of those, oh, there's 616 in the center of that one, and 538 in the center of that one. So I don't know what people want to cook on, but that's awful hot. Yeah, you can see it right there, 619, almost 620 degrees. Okay. So let's go ahead and check this now in different places. Back right here at the flue collar, she's 358 degrees. Let's go up the pipe a little bit. 350, 283. There you go. Let's go up to the top here. Let's go up to the top up here. 293, 244 going into the transition box right there. So it's 244 degrees up top. And at the stove, she's almost 600 degrees. The side, she's 578 degrees. Let's check the back here. 138 degrees on that back panel right there, 151. So the closer you get to this flue, the less the temperature is. So it seems to be trapping a lot of the heat up here in the front. Check the door. 238. We'll check this side over here. 378. And we're up to 40 degrees on the tiny house. Remember, it started at 36. Like I said, this has been running for less than 15 minutes. But I guess that should answer some questions about, is it hot enough to cook on? $606 degrees right now, right there on that round spot. I got quite a few comments on the original video where I burned this for the first time inside the tiny house. And I had the windows all open, and the directions say start a small fire, and the first 4 hours you burn this should be a very small fire, and it said do not start the first fire outdoors. Then it goes on to explain you don't start the first fire outdoors because you can't see the stove overheating. And when you overheat cast iron the first time, you can crack it. So the directions actually say to make sure you do your first burn inside where it's darker, so you can see if this thing starts to glow red anywhere. And if it starts to glow red, you really overheated it. And you really can't see that outside in the sunshine. So that's one of the last things I wanted to mention before we wrap this video up. You should start these on the inside, open up your windows, and ventilate that way. Thanks for coming along on this video. I'm going to leave the link to my original stove video in the description of this one, and I'll do vice versa on the other one. So both videos will be together. And again, I thank you for coming along. I like the stove. It's been really good. It's actually too big for this tiny house. It just overheats it. So I got to be very careful how big the fire is that I put in it. And if I'm going to come out here and actually, you know, stay the day or sleep out here, I got to make sure I don't get it overheated. One day I came in here, it was like 88 degrees. That was way too hot. Then if you go up in the loft, I'm going to put something with ventilation in up there, but it gets way too hot up there to sleep. So I just have to build smaller fires, and that's really how I solved that problem with this stove. But hey, you know, you're not going to get a stove for $400 or $300 and expect it to be the best stove in the world. This stove is $350 at Tractor Supply, $300 on sale usually. It is what it is. I think if you follow the directions, don't be digging out that KO wool because you think it's packing material. Don't be putting a damper in it after you dig out the KO wool and say, well, it smokes. You didn't follow directions, so I guess you get what you deserve. But well-seasoned wood, install it like you're supposed to, and I think it's a good stove. It is what it is. It's a very simple, basic stove that has to meet certain requirements to be sold today. And I think it does a pretty good job at that. If you get a good one, get a good one that's cast and you don't have any miscastings in it, and the door fits properly, I don't know how you're going to go wrong for that price. Again, thank you. We'll see you on the next video. This is Chuck from Amish PA. Hope you guys have a great day. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.